everyone, welcome back to my channel and thank you so much for joining me today. So you can see that I have another special guest with me and we're going to have a very interesting conversation about education. And so if you are interested in this topic and interested to find out who my guest is, then please keep on watching. Okay, so you can see I have a special guest today. I'm going to give Ed an opportunity for him to introduce himself to you. So Ed, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Ed Lawless. I have been in international education since 1987. France, Singapore, Australia, back to Singapore, working with the International Baccalaureate organization, the regional office, which is how I crossed paths with you and Tanya and Christian. And in Singapore, I also crossed paths with Chris Binge, who I saw you had on the show earlier. We both were at United World College for the same time.
Did you? I know that.
Yeah. Oh. And then a very, very big shift to Oxford to be the founding director of the Pedagogy education venture, the online IB diploma courses. Yes. And in many ways it was then, and I think it was the shock to my system. I think I learned more about pedagogy and school management when I was shifted into a virtual school than I ever was in a brick and mortar school. Right. And so since then, I've been in Japan working with a school group here and working with the Ministry of Education here, an initiative that promotes IB growth here in Japan. And just established a not-for-profit organization called the Center for Innovation, which is here to be a gateway for international education innovation between Japan and the rest of the world.
Wow. So it's excellent.
Been a busy boy.
Wow, excellent. There are so many things I want to unpack about what you've said. First of all, I didn't know that you worked with Chris Binge as well. We used to work together. And I think, Ed, last time we saw each other was, I think, in Chicago, where I met up, with Christian. And so you know Christian as well?
Sure. Christian, both as a workshop leader for the IB when I was managing the professional development, but also Christian was one of our Pedagogy teachers online for a very long time. Yes. He was there right from the beginning or in the early days, so absolutely.
Yes. And also Tanya, of course, everybody knows the wonderful Tanya Latanzio.
Yes, Her Highness.
Yes. I've got some exciting announcements actually about Tanya, which I will share at another time. Okay. So with your experience with Pedagogy and also this new role that you've got leading the Center of Innovation and really trying to, I think, connect Japan with the rest of the world in this field, it seems like you have a lot of experience with online learning, and with the current situation, a lot of schools around the world have had to go virtual in a matter of days, weeks, and sometimes overnight. What are some shifts that you've seen post-COVID, some paradigm educational shifts that you've seen that you think is really, I think, enlightening and encouraging for the future?
One of the things I think that is encouraging, first of all, there are a lot of buzzwords out there in education right now, we both know. You know, whether it's words like blended or transformation or disruption. And there are a lot of organizations that dive into the deep end, and the last couple months, many that are pushed in. And either way, I think it's going to be, as you just said, a pretty big paradigm shift. And I think it will be enduring. There are a lot of institutions and organizations, not just educational ones, who are seeing that there are different ways to do things. And as a matter of fact, you partner, your presenter on a previous session, Marcus raised some very, very good points about design thinking and how it makes us rethink any system or any sequence of events. And the user journey, if you will. And it sounds awful to use that business language for education. But I think that's the key shift, Jennifer, is to think of your student as a consumer.
Yes.
Dare I even say as a client? And I know that's a dirty word in education sometimes. Apologize to everyone for that. I have been thrust the last 10, 15 years into the intersection between commerce and education. I've always tried to make sure I'm on the right side of the street. But like it or not, the last few months and years have shown countless education institutions that they need to think differently.
Yeah.
Issues of pace, place, and pathway.
Yes.
Things shift ownership and control for learning to the student.
Yes.
Things that we've been talking about, whether it's catchphrases like agency, inquiry, collaboration, sage on stage versus guide on side. There's so many cliches about it, right? But I think this is testing us and testing schools. And it's testing us to do something that isn't very comfortable. And that means getting out of the way of learning.
Yes. I like that phrase, getting out of the way of learning. I think that reminds me of something that Dr. Maria Montessori said. I can't quote her exactly, but she said that, you know, you've been really successful with your students when they don't know that you are there and that they don't know you exist, basically, that you're not in the way, right? Exactly what you said. Yeah. Absolutely.
And you know, that was funny, like my mother's meatloaf was funny. You know, when I was running Pomoja, when you're taking highly experienced IB teachers and classroom practitioners and transforming them into top online teachers, the Venn diagram is not always like that, okay? There's not always a lot of overlap. And I used to joke or semi-joke about teachers who would obsess about my students and my results and my grades. And I'd say, you got to change the personal pronoun, your buddy. You know, it's just, it's about all the things that we're seeing about all types of learners, adult and young learners, is being a shepherd, being able to build the scaffolding, which means you're fulfilling your duty of care. You're mitigating all the risks. You're ensuring that they're fulfilling their potential, but it's their potential.
Yes.
And as we've seen more and more, they get to more and more, you're going to find more and more schools that will, again, a cliche, crowdsource education.
Just picking up on your point as well of all those cliches of being the guide on the side, I like to see us to take more of a role as being the meddler in the middle.
Yeah.
Where, you know, students are completely directing, you know, a personalized path based on their interest, and we're just them posing questions, maybe pushing their thinking.
Well, and if you're going to push it further, it's really, again, I don't like being a doomsayer, but I always end up sounding like Chicken Little, is all the UNESCO and OECD figures that show that the global education crisis is on us. There's not enough people going into the profession. There's too many kids, and I'm not talking about the type of top schools that we may be most familiar with, obviously, but the pinch is being felt there as well. You know, international schools that are trying to find teachers in tier 3 cities in Asia and elsewhere. There are teachers who don't want to go there anymore. You know? And so all I'm saying is that the lack of access to educational resources, be it a qualified teacher or be it quality resources, means that there has to be alternatives.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody is looking bravely enough at a whole new vehicle for education. Frankly, it's like we're on a locomotive and it's heading for the chasm, and too many people's answer is shovel the coal faster. You know, I apologize for seeming like a doomsayer, but it really is an issue of it could be an opportunity rather than a challenge.
Yes.
With so much knowledge in the cloud, and think about how many retiring or retired teachers there are in the cloud with a high degree of subject matter expertise.
Yes.
That could be either in asynchronous or synchronous ways, sharing and distributing it the way you're doing with these webinars, you know, so that the people in the classroom could be co-learners. They could be modeling learning rather than doing what I did in the 80s when I first started teaching. I hid behind content mastery. I wasn't teaching kids how to learn. I was teaching kids chapter 3 of Catcher in the Rye or David Copperfield, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept hiding behind my content mastery rather than building better learners, you know.
I think we were all, I don't know if the right word is victims, but we were all exposed to that kind of traditional approach in the 80s. I can share that experience with you. I feel like we're just starting a really important and deep conversation, but I am going to invite you back. Ed, would you please come back for another conversation on my channel?
I was just going to say, no, that's it, done. Of course, I'm happy to come back. But again, I do not want to sound like I am negative. I think that this disruption is going to move the goalpost permanently for the better.
Yes.
And that goes with at every level.
Yes.
Secondary, primary, secondary, tertiary, as you well know.
Yes, definitely.
And so look, there are opportunities, I think, to make a critical shift here.
Yeah, and I think some of the takeaways I'm getting from what you've said, Ed, so far is that, you know, these challenges that we're facing, let's see them as opportunities to completely redefine what education is. I hope that's not a cliche word, but we do need to redefine it rather than just trying to modify and improve what we have. Let's think about a completely different model where students are at the centers and we're partners. We're actually in partnership in the learning process, right? Rather than the knowledge bearers that we used to be, because that's just not, I think, valuable anymore in terms of preparing our students for this 21st century and all the unknown jobs that are going to be created within, I think, the next 5 years. So thank you, Ed, once again. I think we're so much on the same page in terms of our beliefs in education. So I really look forward to the next time that we can speak.
That'd be great. Appreciate it.
Great. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Please feel free to put in a comment in the section below if you have any ideas about what we've said. And we really hope to see you next time. Bye.